Andy Says Read, and welcome to the channel. This afternoon we are going to do a review of a contemporary romance novel, and we'll discuss why it had me sobbing like an idiot. You ready? Let's dive in. First, we're going to talk about The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Now, this book is actually taking the place of another book on my clock reading challenge. You may remember that I'm doing the clock reading challenge along with a few other booktubers and bloggers, readers here this year. Joe Linsdell started the clock reading challenge back in, I think, 2021, maybe 2020, but definitely 2021. She was doing the clock reading challenge, which is where you read a book with a number in the title, and the numbers correspond with the numbers on the face of the clock. 1 through 12, right? For number 7, I was thinking I might reread The House of the Seven Gables by Nathaniel Hawthorne, but instead I decided I would read The 7-Year Slip because this is one of the 24 books in 2024 that Jennifer Brooks was looking forward to reading this year. She had a few books on her list that I was like, you know what? I'm going to grab those and I'm going to read those this year in honor of her. She always had excellent book advice, right? Excellent book recommendations. I thought, okay, I'm going to grab a couple that she has recommended, a couple that she was looking forward to, because doggone it, I'm going to look forward to them also, and I'm going to read them. It's my tiny little tribute to the awesomeness of Jennifer Brooks, and we're going to stop talking about that now before I start bursting into tears already. Okay, so first of all, I do need to, during this little intro, give you guys a trigger warning. This book does talk a little bit about suicide, and it's not heavy in there. It's not heavy-handed. I may mention it again in this video, but if that is something that you don't want to talk about, you don't want to hear about at this time, then maybe my next video is a better one for you to tune into, because we will mention it in this video. And I want you guys to remember, though, that it is a myth that talking about suicide causes suicidal ideation. Talking about mental health issues, mental health struggles, talking about suicide is actually the best way to help someone get those thoughts out and help someone reach out for help. And if you want to reach out for help, the 988 helpline is available. There is always a licensed counselor ready to listen, to talk, to help you at the 988 crisis line. And that is actually also listed in the back of this book. So let's move on out of the intro and start talking about The 7-Year Slip. Let's start with the specs. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. It was published by Berkeley, an imprint of Penguin Random House, in June 2023. The first edition was in June 2023. This version is 326 pages, plus it has a reader's guide at the back, and that's about 6 or 7 pages. The reader's guide has a note from Ashley. It has the 988 hotline information back there. It has some discussion questions, and it has some book pairings, like other books that she recommends reading, excuse me, along with it. Let's see. The back cover. Let me read the back cover for you. Same place, different time. Sometimes the worst day of your life happens, and you have to figure out how to live after it. For Clementine West, that means burying her head in her work as a book publicist, being practical, and forgetting the silly things her beloved Aunt Analea taught her, like living wide and chasing the moon. Clementine would rather stay grounded and keep her heart safe. For the last 6 months, she's done just that. But when she moves into her late aunt's apartment and finds a strange man standing in the kitchen, a man with kind eyes, a southern drawl, and a taste for lemon pies, her well-laid plans begin to fall apart, because he's the type of man who, before it all, she would have fallen head over heels for, and she still might. Except he exists in the past, 7 years in the past, to be exact, and she, quite literally, lives 7 years in his future. Her aunt always said that the apartment was a pinch in time, a place where moments blended like watercolors. She also said that love is never a matter of time, but a matter of timing. and Clementine fears she may be 7 years too late. Now, this is a contemporary romance with that speculative fiction twist. There's like that hint of like maybe a paranormal element, but that spec fic twist is what caught my attention, when Jennifer was listing this among her 24 reads for 2024, right? I'm not typically a contemporary romance reader, doesn't thrill me, but that twist, that little element of magic caught my attention, and I liked that a lot. Now, so I want to tell you that I've got notes here, you guys, because I'm not going to be able to get through this without the notes. This is written in first person past tense, and the tenses don't change when we slide into that 7 years ago time frame. Okay, we don't get like a pluperfect tense, right? We don't get weird tenses telling us that we've shifted into a 7 years in the past, but we do. It is clear that we are in the past 7 years ago, and the writer Ashley makes that clear. And I've on pages 124 and 125, I've marked something for you guys to read for you to show you how she did it. If I can find pages 124 and 125. So like she returns to the apartment after she has experienced that time slip. She experienced that time slip. It was weird, and we're going to talk about that in this review. It was weird for her, of course. And then she experienced that time slip for the weekend. She goes to work on Monday, and when she's coming back Monday evening, she's like, hello? Is somebody there? Like, sometimes I'm alone. Sometimes I'm not. Hello? All right, I pulled my keys out of my purse, trying to rein in my excitement. I unlocked the door to B4 and opened the door quickly. How about let's try my aunt's fettuccine tonight? I called into the apartment, kicking off my shoes by the door. I stopped a few feet into the apartment. It was dark and silent. The kind of silence that made my heart twist painfully. The kind I knew all too well in this place. Iwan, I called, and fear mounted in my chest, because it was the kind of silence that I remembered from just after Aunt Analea died. The kind of soulless, unlivable silence that made me want to run away as quickly as I could. The kind of silence that sat with me as I unpacked my boxes. As I put her things away in the closet, I took another step into the apartment, then another. Iwan? My voice was softer now, mostly eaten by my own panic. This was the kind of silence that was so loud it screamed. When I rounded into the kitchen, the lights were out and the kitchen was clean. My box of dinnerware from my old apartment set beside the sink, open and halfway unpacked. There were coffee cups still on the drying rack, having never made it to their spots in the cabinets, the napkins in the peacock holder empty. In the living room, everything was orange-yellow with evening light, like a still life portrait, framing the space where a robin's egg blue chair no longer sat, its impressions still in the oriental rug. So what we're seeing is present day. We've returned to present day in the apartment. What we saw over the weekend was the robin's egg blue chair still there. What we saw over the weekend was 7 years ago furniture, 7 years ago stuff in the kitchen, 7 years ago light, 7 years ago. We're back in the present. And Ashley paints the pictures for us. So when we're in the past, when we're 7 years in the past, things look different, things sound different, things smell different. There's a difference in the apartment. When we come to today's past, things look different. She writes it differently. She paints a different picture. So we don't have to have weird tenses to tell us which time period we're in. We feel it, we see it, we live it with our main character. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so I talked that with you. I read you the back cover. All right, let me tell you about our characters. Clementine West, she's our main character, obviously. She is a book publicist living in New York. She's been a book publicist for 7 years, okay? Aunt Analea, even though she is no longer living in this time period, she is very much a main character in my mind, just because she is so much a part of Clementine's world. Clementine loved her aunt very much. They would go off on adventures together, especially during the summers. They would go off gallivanting through Europe. They would go backpacking through Europe. They would go on trips all the time together. Her aunt was quite eccentric and she could fit in to any situation. So she was a life force, okay? And Clementine misses her terribly. So much of what Clementine is going through, she is attributing to the fact that she's got this hole in her life for the last 6 months without her aunt. So her aunt is very much a character in this book. Fiona and Drew are two characters in this book. Fiona is pregnant when we first meet her, and we can kind of mark time by her pregnancy because she does give birth toward the end of the novel. So we can kind of mark time through that. That's how I was marking time anyway. Fiona and Drew are married, and they are very good friends to our main character, Clementine. They are there for her. I mean, they're like what a best friend should be, right? They are wonderful. Then we have Rhonda. Rhonda's kind of a minor character. She's a boss. She is going to be retiring, and she's told Clementine, hey, I would love for you to have my job when I retire. Let's make sure that you can prove yourself to, the other partner here at the publishing company. Strauss and Adder is the name of the publishing company. And she's like, let's make sure you can prove yourself to my partner and get you into this job. Of course, Clementine has to decide, does she really want that? Okay. Then our other main character is James Iwan Ashton. And I might not be pronouncing Iwan correctly. That's how I pronounced it. But James Iwan Ashton is the male lead in our story, and we actually have 2 meet cutes with him. Let me see where that is in my notes. Where did I put that in the notes, you guys? Because I want to show you. Okay, here we go. The first meet cute with him is on page 14. In the very first chapter, okay? This is the actual meet cute in our past, in our real time, okay? Page 14. Our main character, Clementine, is having lunch with Fiona and Drew, and they're talking about signing on this fabulous chef in New York to write a book with their publishing house. Clementine has been called away from the lunch. She's leaving. And let's see, she says, "You got this," I said as my author sent another panicked email. I hugged them both and stole one last fried goat cheese ball, chased it with the rest of the wine, and turned to leave. "Watch out," Drew cried. Fiona gasped. Too late. I collided with a server behind me. The dessert he held went one way, and he went the other. I shot my hand out to grab it as he went to grab me and pulled me back upright. I stumbled, and he steadied me, his grip strong on my arm. "Nice save," he said warmly. "Thanks, And that was when I realized my other hand was on his very solid chest. "Oh," I quickly handed him back the dessert and stepped away. "I am so sorry." A blush rose too quickly on my cheeks. I couldn't look at the guy. I had definitely just put my hand on a stranger for longer than necessary. "Lemon?" the man asked. "Yes, sorry. That's our dessert, but I have to go," I replied in a hurry. My face felt as red as a cherry. I quickly dodged around him, mouthing to my friends, "Good luck," as I left the restaurant. 2 calls to Southwest Airlines, and 4 city blocks later, I had the author on the next flight to their final tour stop. I descended into the subway to make my way back to Midtown and to work, and tried to get the feeling of that man's strong grip, the solidness of his chest, the way he bent toward me. And he did bend toward me, didn't he? Like he knew me? I wasn't imagining things. Out of my head. So that was our first meet cute. And yeah, of course, that was Iwan, okay? Of course it was. I don't think I'm giving things away in the first chapter because, obviously that's a meet cute right there. It just happened. Okay, but the next time that we have our meet cute is on page 34. This is in the apartment, and this is when the apartment is slipping in time. We're getting our first slip 7 years back in the past, okay? And Clementine has gone home. It's Friday evening. She's tired. She's like practically drunk, right? And she falls asleep. She wakes up on the couch in the morning, and someone is shaking her awake. And this shouldn't be happening because she lives alone in this apartment, okay? And it says, with pure unbridled terror, I propelled myself to sit up, throwing my hands out widely. I connected with the intruder. In the face. The man gave a cry, clutching his nose. As I pushed myself to my feet, standing on the couch, my aunt's decorative tasseled pillow of Jeff Goldblum's face raised in defense. The stranger threw up his arms. I'm unarmed. I'm not. And I hit him with the pillow. Okay, we're meeting Iwan again in the past, which is wonderful. This 7-year time slip has happened, and these two met each other in the past. Obviously, it's a romance. This is what's happening. But I love the fact that she collided with him violently in real time, and she collided with him violently in the past too. I thought that was clever. I thought that was great. So the premise of our story is, let's see, Aunt Analea died about 6 months prior to the opening of the book, but the story starts 7 years prior when Clementine and Aunt Analea have left town. They aren't even in town, okay? And the apartment lets Clementine and Iwan get together. For me, that's when the real story really starts, is 7 years ago, 7 years before present day, when those two met one weekend in the apartment and they became friends. And they were obviously attracted to each other. They didn't do anything naughty, but they were attracted to each other. They began to learn who one another was. And what I found interesting, though, and this is nitpicky, I'm going to admit this is just me being nitpicky. What's interesting is Iwan, in this 7 years in the past, leaves the apartment that Clementine has just come to. Okay, it's Saturday, and he's going to a job interview. Now, she has just come into the apartment Friday night. She wakes up Saturday morning. They talk, whatever. He leaves to go on a job interview, and she stays in the apartment and does some painting, right? Why does he leave the apartment in the past? And maybe someone out there can have this discussion. I mean, this is a discussion question, right? It's weird to me that when he leaves the apartment, he doesn't leave in 2023 or 2020, whatever year this is happening in, right? When he leaves the apartment, why does he leave in the past? Why is he 7 years ago? But he is 7 years ago, and he goes on his interview, and he's going to become a dishwasher at this cool restaurant where he wants to work. He wants to work in that restaurant, work his way up to a line cook, and then become a chef, and then become like the main chef, right? This is his goal. This is his plan. That's what he's out there to do. And she stays behind in the apartment because, she lives there, and she starts painting and doing her thing. Now, because of the time slip also, my notes, because of the time slip also, I had a couple moments where I questioned the narrator. And that happens when he comes home from, or he comes back from that job interview. So it's still Saturday, and he comes back from the job interview, and what page am I on? You guys. Okay, page 98. Hold, please. Let me get to page 98. All right. So she has been in the tub, like most of the day, painting, because she paints in the bathtub in her aunt's apartment when she was younger, and she would paint, she would spill paint. And so her aunt was like, if you paint in the tub and you spill, it's easy to clean up. So she just got into that habit. So she's painting in the tub. And then she decides, okay, I'm already in the tub. I'm just going to take a bath in the tub. So she's taking a bath, she's lounging, and the front door opens, and she's like, oh my gosh, Iwan has come back. I'm in the tub. Okay, so she says here, I quickly reached for my towel and pulled myself out of the bath. I heard him in the kitchen putting things away as I dried myself off and remembered that I hadn't picked out any clothes. Shit, I muttered, and opened the bathroom closet to try to find one of her bathrobes. Instead, I found a lovely black satin robe with a marabou feather trim. It was utterly ridiculous, the kind of expensive robe wealthy women in old movies wore, complete with a long cigarette holder and a dead body in the foyer. I snorted, pulling it off the hanger. I'd almost forgotten that she had this monstrosity. A few years ago, it caught fire thanks to her St. Dolly Parton candle, and she ended up tossing both out the window in a panic. The apartment smelled like melted feathers for weeks. Now, keep in mind, she is thinking in our present, right? So that's why a couple years ago this thing burned up. But me, as the reader, I read that passage and I went, wait a minute, if it burned up a couple years ago, why is it here in the closet? Well, it's here in the closet because 7 years ago it was in the closet, right? And I'm nitpicking. Don't take this as like don't take this as something negative. I'm just being nitpicky. When I read that the first time through, I was like, well, wait a minute. Why is it in the closet if it burned up? Well, that's just because of the time jumps and the time slips. And it took me out of the story. Obviously, I'm still talking about it, right? It took me out of the story to read that and go, wait, that doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense if you stop and think about it. So there are just a couple moments like that where I doubted the narrator. I was like, well, wait, why do you have access to that? Well, it's because of the time slip. It's all good. It makes sense if you think about it enough, okay? There you go. All right, what else am I supposed to talk about here? I've got this. Oh, yeah, and the concept of Iwan being able to go out in his time, and that was weird to me. I thought about it an awful lot as I was reading the story because there wasn't an explanation for that. And this isn't a sci-fi book, so I don't know why I was expecting there to be an explanation for the time differences. I mean, there's one spot in here, kind of sad, where Iwan and Clementine are so excited about going out into the world to go see like the Met and go to like a couple different things, have a picnic in the park. They're going to go do this on, I don't know if it's like a Saturday or a Sunday, right? And they're in his time period. So 7 years ago, the apartment has done its slip, right? So 7 years ago, and he's like, let's go do this. And he's got her hand, they're holding hands. He opens the front door and poof, he disintegrates. He goes away because I assume because they're both in different times when they both step through the door. So poof, he disintegrates and she is left standing there going, oh, he's gone. I'm back in current time. He's gone. Well, so the next time she sees him in the past, he's like, are you a ghost? Because you disappeared. So in his time 7 years ago, she also disappeared. But he was left in 7 years ago going, she's gone. And that, like, I didn't get an explanation as to how or why that doorway did that to them. But it's not a science fiction book. You just have to suspend your disbelief and go with it. But for some reason, I kept going, well, why? I shouldn't have kept doing that, but I did. I kept doing that. But there are so many good things about the book that those couple of little nitpicky things I can overlook because there's so many good things. Let's talk about some of those good things here, okay? First of all, the friendships happening between Fiona, Drew, and Clementine are just lovely. I saw those three as like a three-legged stool for like a sturdy friendship, okay? When Clementine lost her aunt, Fiona and Drew were there for her. They helped her. They took care of her. When she needed to cry in the kitchen floor, they held her, okay? I mean, it was such a lovely friendship between those three that it was touching. It was lovely. I appreciated that very much. I also appreciated that throughout this book, Clementine is going through an arc, okay? She is discovering that she would like to do something different. She would like to find her joy. The book publicist gig, she's okay with it. She likes it. She's good at it. She can do it. She could continue doing it, or she could not. You know, it's not her final joy. She would like to paint. This painting that her aunt encouraged her in was really the thing she wanted to be doing. And she wants to continue with watercolor. She wants to do the painting. I'm going to start crying, you guys. Here we go. and pretty soon here, I'll tell you what made me burst into tears with this book. She is empowered during this book. She becomes empowered to do the things she wanted to do. And she is encouraging Iwan in our current day and in the 7 years in the past. She's encouraging him bit by bit by bit to go after his joy. She's encouraging him, and through encouraging him, she sees how she should be encouraging herself. Okay? It's the build up in that is lovely. I loved that. I dig it. That was so good. I liked that very much. And Iwan is, he's a good guy. When we see him in the current day, when we first meet him again in the current day, it's kind of like, wait a minute, did he turn into a douchebag? Because that's no good. But he didn't. He didn't turn into a douchebag. He's kind of standoffish. He's kind of weird, but we get the explanation for that. And the explanation for that is almost heartbreaking and then it turns into our romance and the love story and the why and the reason for that comes through. And it's kind of heartbreaking, but it's also a little bit joyful. And let me tell you, where's the joyfulness? Page 254. Hold on, guys. There is a reason for joyfulness in this, okay? And the apartment is what gives them that joyfulness. This is Clementine speaking because it's all in her voice throughout. It says, "The longer I lived in my aunt's apartment, the more I could see why she had kept it. Why, after her heartbreak with Vera, she hadn't sold it and instead traveled the world to stay away. There was a possibility in the sound of the lock clicking open, in the creak of the hinges as the door flung wide. A roulette that may or may not bring you back to the time when you felt happiest." Oh, I'm going to try not to burst into tears, you guys. It was just so lovely. Woo, I'm just getting all emotional over it. It was so good. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. I might have to edit this out, you guys. Give me just a moment. Jennifer, thank you for recommending this book. It was so good. What really? Hang 1 minute, guys. 1 minute. I'll get there. Okay. It's the discussion questions. You would think that's what made me burst into tears, right? It was the discussion questions at the end that really got me. They are in depth. They make you think. The very first one is thought-provoking. I'm not going to read it because I'm already a little bit of a mess here, right, guys? It's just so nice. It's so good. They're thought-provoking questions that make you go, huh, I wonder, how would I react? What is my reason to try, right? I mean, it's nicely done. I enjoyed this book a whole lot more than I thought I was going to because, as you know, contemporary romance isn't really my bag, but having that time slip, that magic in the middle of it was wonderful. And seeing these two help one another find their purpose and find their goals together was awesome. I enjoyed that very much. Very obviously, very much. It was great. I can recommend it. Is that all I needed to tell you guys? Oh, the Deconstructed Lemon Pie. There's a lot of symbolism going on in this book. But at the very beginning, that very first luncheon in the first chapter, the girls, Fiona, Drew, and Clementine, they order a deconstructed lemon pie for their dessert. And there's symbolism in them getting a deconstructed lemon pie, in Iwan having made a deconstructed lemon pie. If you read the book, you'll understand why deconstructed lemon fits and why a real lemon pie factors in as well. I can highly recommend The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Thank you, Ashley, for a great book. Thank you, Jennifer, for a great recommendation. Everybody, I can recommend that one. That is book 7 on the clock reading challenge for me. That's it. Thumbs up for great books that bring out emotions in us. And please subscribe to the channel. Please click the bell notification icon so that you can be notified each time a book makes me burst into tears. And thank you so much for tuning in.